Alright, so I thought this would be a good video to make showing what I consider to be the difference between shallow, medium, and deep damage when it comes to glass damage, mainly scratches. And of course, that can be subjective, but that's why I thought it would be good to make a video because I'm used to looking at damage on glass all day long. And probably about 80% of the time, people who call me, this is their first time looking at scratches on glass. So this is so that we can make sure we're talking about the same thing. So a real quick overview. I consider light damage to be anything that almost looks like it could be wiped off of the glass, but it can't. It's not going to catch your fingernail, but sometimes it'll look like very, very light. That's a common thing people tell me is they tried to wipe it off, but it won't wipe off. Those are generally light scratches. Medium scratches are most of what I repair. Usually if they're actually light, a lot of times, unless if the light's hitting it weird, you won't even see them or it won't bother you enough to probably call and pay to have it fixed, but some people definitely do. Most of the damage is medium in depth. That means you can definitely tell that it's a scratch in the glass. If you run your fingernail across it, you can feel it. You can probably hear it, but it's not necessarily going to catch your fingernail. There may be minor chipping in some areas, but this is typical of razor blade scratches on glass or light graffiti. Deep scratches, those catch the nail. They have chipping, and this can usually happen because of graffiti. Sometimes they'll use a diamond or something to etch into the glass, or during construction, welding splatter can hit a window, whatever it may be that really just hits it and takes a chip out of it. So that would be deep damage. And of course, it's hard to classify all damage into 3 different categories. Typically, it's going to fall in medium, but this will give you an idea, all of these examples, and we'll look at a few examples of each a little closer. All right, so we're going to take a closer look at a few examples of some scratches out in the field and how I would categorize them. This here is very, very typical damage that I remove, especially like post-construction cleaning damage. This I would classify as medium. Most of it is medium. There's a bit lighter. Some of it's not even showing up in the picture, but what's mostly showing up is the medium stuff. If you zoom in, there's it's all medium. I was going to say there's a little bit of deep mixed in there, but barely. It's medium/heavy. This is typical of graffiti. Graffiti is usually going to be a mix of light. In that left corner, you can see some light. Most of it's medium, and then there's some definitely heavy areas where it's chipped fairly deeply. This one here was a nice surprise. The guy called and told me that the damage was light, and that's what I hear almost every single time, especially when they're looking for a good price. Oh, the scratches are very light. 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. This was one of those cases where the scratches actually were very light, and I was able to get them to show up on camera. So this is what light scratches actually look like, and it's pretty rare. A lot of people, when they have light scratches, they won't even pay to have it fixed. They'll just leave them. Again, here are some light scratches, but because there's so many of them, they become more apparent, but they're actually not that deep. There are a few deeper ones that you can see, those straight lines. That was actually the initial damage in the glass that another company tried to remove the scratches on their own, and it didn't go so well. So they had me come out and fix the rest of it along with the areas that they attempted. But that shows a good mix of what I would actually consider light scratches with a few medium in there. And if you look, you can probably tell which are which. All right, these ones are actually pretty deceiving because they don't look that deep, do they? I didn't think they were that deep. When you zoom in, you can see, though, that they're very narrow scratches, but they were actually deceptively deep. in between the lines, you can see much finer scratches, but those were actually medium, almost bordering deep, some of them, surprisingly enough. So sometimes it can be deceptive. This is some typical scratches that I would consider medium from post-construction cleaning. More medium damage. More medium damage. A bunch more medium damage. And then lastly here, I like to include this one because it makes a good before and after picture because you can't even see through the glass. And it came out perfectly. As close to perfectly as humanly possible anyway. But it didn't take that long. The damage was actually light to medium. It wasn't that deep. But because there was so much of it, you couldn't even see through it. But it came out fairly quick. And here's another graffiti one. This is a good example of deep damage, and I think that's what we're going to get into now is the deeper damage and what separates it from medium depth damage. And it's all of that excessive chipping. See how it looks white? That's chipping in the glass. This has either been done by a diamond or some sort of carbide tip. But you can see that there's plenty of medium and light scratches surrounding it too. So you get a direct comparison there. Here's another example of some deep damage, which again can be identified by the heavy, heavy white look. It's caused by all of that chipping. These types of scratches will definitely catch your fingernail as well. So that's another way that you can identify. Whether it's light, medium, or deep, it can usually be fixed. And here's another example of some deep damage, but this time not graffiti. This is actually on a construction site, which does happen quite a bit. I don't even know how this one happened. Nobody does. Something heavy hit it pretty good. So that can happen quite a bit. Another type of damage that happens on construction sites that's incredibly deep is welding splatter. And here's an example of that. Somebody was either welding or I think they might have been grinding steel next to the glass, and the debris from that flew off and hit the window, both chipping it and leaving pieces of lodged metal, melted metal stuck in the glass. So that's about as deep as it gets, and still able to be repaired. So you get the whole wide spectrum here from light to deep. I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, feel free to call, email, leave a comment. Get a hold of me however is best for you. Hope everybody's doing well.